Hey, so it was always my dream to be a part of this moment right here in U.S. history. This is a great moment where the Committee of Five, these five men, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and John Adams and two other guys, I can't remember who they were, but they presented to the Second Continental Congress the Declaration of Independence as they drafted it. Really, as Thomas Jefferson drafted it, right? So we said, hey, we're done with you, England. Hey, we're going to do our own thing now. We got to figure out what's going to come next. Really wish I could have been a fly on that wall, but at least kind of I am today. So, the reason that the colonists were really quite upset about all of this King George, King of England, not giving them their rights was because there was a long train of abuses and usurpations, as they said. Well, this is only a bit of a short version of it, but you can see that British officials were issuing writs of assistance, which essentially allows government officials to search whatever, right? They were saying that anybody living west of the Appalachian Mountains required a license to trade with Native Americans. We were already doing that unofficially. Why do we need a license to do that? Right? Sugar Act makes it a tax on sugar, one of the most important goods imported. The Stamp Act, the official stuff has to be documented with a stamp that you pay for. The Tea Act, we all know what happens after the British tax the tea, which gives them a monopoly and takes away local merchants' business. We get the Boston Tea Party. In response to that, you have the Intolerable Acts, and now things are really starting to get full of tension. So, once we declare independence in 1776, we say all men are created equal and they're endowed by their creator and so on and so forth, like we went through. But those are only part of what we see in our government, right? If we look at where the states were, and the states had declared independence and the states had set up their particular governments, they had those five things in them: popular sovereignty, the people have the power; a limited government; protections of civil rights and liberties; the separation of powers, saying one branch can't do something else that the other is supposed to do; and then checks and balances to make sure everybody's doing their job. See, in the Declaration of Independence, we have popular sovereignty, limited government, and civil rights and liberties, but that wasn't a system of government. The first system of government we set up was the Articles of Confederation. You'll notice something that only has one thing: limited government. Why? Because we were afraid of a big, giant, powerful national government. Well, as you'll see here in a minute, that didn't work. So what do we got to do? Create the U.S. Constitution. And when we create the U.S. Constitution, we realize it's got to have all four things, because the states were getting it right. So, what were the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation? Well, you can see that Congress had no executive power to enforce the laws. You can see Congress couldn't raise an army. We couldn't defend ourselves. Congress had no power to make any sort of money. That becomes a problem because then there were 14 different currencies. Congress had no power to levy and collect taxes. That becomes a problem because we had debt to repay. Congress has no power to regulate commerce. That becomes a problem. Well, you get the point. And Congress had no power to amend the Constitution, or the Articles, because it required a unanimous vote. 13 states had to agree to changes. Well, that ain't going to happen. So, as you can see, the weaknesses of the Articles were pretty big, and what were the effects? Well, if we look at this idea that Congress had no power to amend the Articles without a unanimous vote, well, there weren't any new changes, right? Your money was worthless because one state wouldn't accept the other state. It was worthless currency. Well, Virginia banning all goods from Maryland and North Carolina pits those two against each other, and the national government can't settle that score. And Congress not having executive power allows a Georgia citizen to disobey a congressional resolution. And Georgia's okay with it. We got all kinds of problems, and all of these things are making the Articles weak and making our national and state governments weak at the same time. So, why is this a problem? Well, it's really a problem because nobody knows who's got what authority. The states are doing their own thing. The national government wants something, and the states are looking to the national government for protection, and farmers are looking for protections from the state governments who are taking their property away. That's Shays' Rebellion. But we didn't have any control, right? So here's really three basic ideas of government. Well, we could have had a unitary system of government. And if we're looking at a unitary system of government, that says the national government gives its power and its rules to the people. So, there's one government. Unitary means one thing, right? Then we can look at this idea of a confederation. Right after the Declaration of Independence, we set up a confederation which said the states, and there's the most important part, give people their rights, but also give the central government their authority. Whoa, wait a second here. The central government, the national government, gets its power from the states. It's kind of like when your dad said, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. That's what the states are saying here. Central government, you're going to be checked by the state's power. The third option is when we look at this idea, which is a uniquely American invention called the federal system, right? So the federal system gets its power essentially and has its authority over the people of the state and the states. Oh, but wait, the states also get some of their power here. So really the federal system is a sharing of power, where you've got a lot of sovereignties that we're looking at here, and we got a lot of power and how that's structured. Okay, so once we realize that, well, unitary government's not going to work, we don't want that, we just got to escape from that. A confederal system or a confederate system isn't going to work, because loosely tying this ragtag group of states together with a weak national government, that's not going to work. So we got to create something new. And what we decide is, when we get together at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, we get a whole bunch of people that come together and say, hey, this system isn't working. That Articles of Confederation, we got a problem with that. And we got to do something about it. It is just simply not going to work. And we got to start all over. So, what do they start all over with? Well, they go to the state constitutions, and they see that state constitutions have popular sovereignty, limited government, civil rights and liberties, separation of powers, and checks and balances. And they